will be tax day. And I wanted to talk just a little bit today about why I chose accounting and why I chose quilting. And they are very much, both of them, alike in three aspects. The first one, I wrote some notes down here. So I actually wrote this in my journal, and I thought it would make a good topic for a video posting. The first way that accounting and quilting are alike is in detail work. Accounting, you're working on very finite, small numbers. Sometimes when I was going to college, I had not exposure yet to computers. And we did everything, all our homework and assignments on that green ledger paper, really narrow columns and sometimes 12 wide by however many lines, and these big legal sheets, legal size sheets. It was very detail oriented. You had to do so much detail work, and I loved it. Nowadays we have computers and we have QuickBooks, we have tax accounting software. Of course, Excel. We have a lot of software that can help us in our profession. But sometimes during tax season, you may have noticed, I haven't been posting many videos, but my eyes are really wigging out. After 9 hours of staring a gnat's eye view on the computer, sometimes my eyes are screaming. And when I come home, I just want to look far away. And luckily I have some beautiful mountains to stare at. I just want to stare far, far away and focus on something far, far away. But it's that detail in accounting, and then of course we have detail in quilting. When we make our measurements, our cuts of our fabric, if they're not spot on, they will be off and it will throw your whole quilt off. When I used to teach, if your sewing or your points were off, even by 2 or 3 threads, the more pieces in a block and the more blocks across your quilt top. So if your quilt top was even 100 or 120, the bigger your quilt top and the more pieces in your block, if you were off 2 or 3 threads in each block, that accentuated over the width and length of the quilt, and it threw things off. Bless my dear girlfriend's heart. I'm not gonna pick on her, but she just got done making a pineapple quilt, and one side measures, I think it was like 100, and the other side measures 90. So you can tell that that quilt is not quite square, and if it was anything other than a pineapple block, I probably could really quilt it square, but that is such a beautiful block. I might have to get my seam ripper and go down and help her pick it all out. But that just kind of goes to show you how much you have to really focus on detail when you're a quilter and when you are an accountant. The second thing you need, the biggest, I'm listing the top 3, but number 2 is patience. In accounting, you have to have patience. If you're not patience detail oriented, it is not a good profession for you. Sometimes patience comes in the fact from the client. If they're late in getting their paperwork or their books to you, regardless if it's tax season or not. Sometimes I am quickly rushed to do payroll even, and if they don't give me their numbers and patience kicks in, I am always a little bit stressed out getting the numbers and payroll information back to them. Patience in accounting is golden, as in patience in quilting is golden. In the case of my girlfriend, we may have to be ripping out with a seam ripper. If you're making a block, sometimes you may have to rip out that block and sew it a couple times until you get the hang of the block that you're putting together. Patience and detail go hand in hand, really, when you're a quilter and when you're an accountant. The number one thing that I love both of those things about both of my jobs, by the way. I am detail driven. I'm a fairly patient person. But the number one reason why I love both accounting and quilting is numbers. I am very number-oriented driven. Um, there's lots of math in both of them. Adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. And when I was in college, I was trying to pick a profession where I did not have to have trigonometry and lots of algebra and lots of, lots of detail-oriented math that A equals by squared and all. I didn't like that kind of math. It just had to be add, subtract, multiply, and divide. So numbers, let me finish that thought. Numbers are very, one of my very favorite things in quilting and accounting is I do like working with numbers. So numbers, patience, and detail. But given all three of those, one reason why I think I make a semi-decent quilter and a semi-decent accountant, and why I like both of them, my personality is rare and unique in the fact that I am left-handed and I am an introvert. The left-handed people think with their right brains, and right-handed people are more left brain driven. I really think because I'm left-handed and I grew up in a household of right-handed people, I don't want to say I'm ambidextrous. I'm very much left-handed. I do everything. Drive, I do a lot left-handed. Almost everything. My right hand is almost worthless to me. But when I was doing some research on being left-handed, there were a couple facts that really stood out to me. Left-handed people, what's the word I want? Left-handed people consume about only 10% of the population, and of that 10%, almost 2 to 4 males are left-handed compared to 1 female. So I thought that was a very, very interesting statistic. I know 1 left-handed female besides myself, and myriads of left-handed males. So I think that means that I'm a very creative being, with being left-handed, thinking with my right side of my brain, and then the accounting is more logical profession, more logical study, and that takes the right side of my brain. So I consider myself kind of a rarity. Left-handed people also have, this was a statistic, and I do not know if this is true, but it's a statistic nonetheless, higher incomes among college graduates if you're left-handed versus right-handed. But left-handed people have a slightly higher chance of being dyslexic. And while I am not dyslexic, I have a daughter who tends to be a little on that side, and my husband shows a little bit of that. I did receive one really good piece of advice with my very first job while I was in college. Maybe it was after college. It was during the early years anyway. Because I'm left-handed and I would write with my left hand, this CPA that I was doing an internship with said if I could use my right hand to use the calculator, I could do a number and write at the same time instead of picking up a pencil, writing a number down, using the adding machine, picking up my pencil again, writing the number down. So that kind of got to be a multitasking time-saving benefit for me over the years. In my profession, both of them, I have to be very detail-oriented, I have to be very number-oriented, and very patient. But quilting happens to be one of my passions because I get to be creative. You can't be creative in accounting. That means you'd be cooking the books. But both of them are either spot on or not. In accounting, you're either spot on, everything balances, everything is real. Those numbers are very finite and they're real. Versus in quilting, if your blocks don't come out square, if the points don't match up, you have other issues. So both of my professions are exact. And that's why I like them. They balance, they match, everything weighs out even. So happy tax day. I'll probably won't get this posted until closer to tax day. But happy tax day. I hope your taxes are filed or an extension has been filed for you. And now I can go back to my part-time accounting work and part-time quilting work. And happy spring.